Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Stevie Middleton, and I'm a BBC commissioner for a load of sport podcasts. I'm lucky to do that at the BBC because I get to work with leading journalists, experienced pundits, and the biggest sports stars. Together, we bring you untold stories and fascinating insights straight from the players' mouths. But the best thing about doing this at the BBC is our unique access to the sporting world. What that means is that we can bring you podcasts that create a real connection to dedicated sports fans across the UK. So if you like this podcast, head over to BBC Sounds where you'll find plenty more.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast on Thursday the 2nd of May. I'm Jonathan Sutherland, and here is what is on the agenda today as we focus on the Championship and beyond.
Chance goal! Chris Mulgrew knocks the ball into the back of the net, and that could be the goal that clinches the Championship for Dundee United.
It's party time at Tannadice, but it's not much fun at the foot of the table.
How vitally important for Inverness that they stay clear of that. I mean, a lot has been made about the finances of the club as well, and where they're potentially looking at League One, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Who will hold their nerve as Queen's Park and Inverness Cally Thistle battle it out to avoid the relegation playoff place? We'll also hear about a straight shootout to avoid 9th in League One, and in League Two, can Clyde complete the Great Escape?
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
We are joined today by the host of A View from the Terrace and Stenhousemuir fan Craig G. Telfer, and the former Hearts and Ayr United midfield maestro Ryan Stevenson. And Craig, if I can start with you, this is a bit of a broadcasting first because we've never actually met until today. What a time to be alive. How the devil are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Two titans of the game brought together at last. It's like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in that scene in Heat. I can't wait to get going, Jonathan.
I have tentatively waved to Joel Sked once or twice at Tynecastle, but this is as close as I've got to A View from the Terrace. So it is an absolute pleasure, Craig. And Ryan Stevenson, we have met several times over the years. In fact, you've starred on A View from the Terrace with the artwork all over your body. And what's happening in Ryan Stevenson's life right now?
Just enjoying life, mate. Enjoying life and enjoying doing these podcasts kind of every Thursday. Get my column in the Daily Record. And just enjoying actually watching football and not actually participating in this time of the season for once.
A man of leisure, almost, you would say.
Pretty much.
Wow, magical. Great
It's nice.
Great to have you this morning, Craig and Ryan. Before we get to business, let's run through the Scottish football headlines. St Johnstone owner Jeff Brown has agreed to sell his majority stake in the Scottish Premiership club to American businessman Adam Webb. The American already owns a 10% shareholding in English League One club Cambridge United, and both the Scottish FA and the English Football League will need to approve the sale. 26 decisions since the start of the Premiership season have been deemed incorrect by the Scottish FA's VAR independent review panel. The tally, based on incidents requested by the panel or submitted for consideration, is a rise of 10 since February's last meeting of the group. Rangers narrowed Celtic's lead at the top of the SWPL as they eased past Hearts 3-0 at Broadwood ahead of Monday's Old Firm derby. With Celtic drawing 2-2 with Glasgow City earlier, Joe Potter's side knew before kick-off they could close the gap at the summit. Rarely looked in trouble against the side they'll meet in the Scottish Cup final later this month as they chase a domestic treble. Let's start with the Championship. All the final fixtures take place on Friday night at 7:45. The last thing really left to play for at this stage is the battle to avoid the relegation playoff place. Inverness currently in that 9th spot on 39 points. Queen's Park a point ahead in 8th place. Inverness at home to Morton. Queen's Park host Airdrie. Both are going to be very nervy affairs, aren't they, Ryan?
Yeah, listen, it's a horrible game to be involved if you're one of their players. I think it's a dangerous game because the other two teams go into the game on Friday night with nothing but enjoyment because it's the last game of the season. They're away on holidays. They've probably got a night out on Friday night after it, and they can play with total freedom. Where for Queen's Park and Inverness, it will be 90 minutes full of anxiety, nerves, and just hoping and praying that they can get 3 points. And for Inverness, obviously hoping that Airdrie can do them a massive favour and take points off Queen's Park.
Yeah, Craig, Duncan Ferguson is not really sounding very optimistic at all, is he? Because Inverness, we should clarify, on 39 points. Queen's Park are on 40 points. I suppose the thing as well is that Queen's Park host Airdrie, who are already in the Premiership playoff places, and that kicks off again next week. And it's difficult to know what to expect from an Airdrie side tomorrow, who might have their eyes on other things as well. So I suppose you can understand Duncan Ferguson feeling like Queen's Park might have a real chance there against an Airdrie side that have other priorities.
I can see where Duncan Ferguson's coming from, but having watched Airdrieonians against Dundee United on the BBC Scotland channel last Friday, I was really impressed by them. And I think if it hadn't been for Jack Walton's performance in goal for United, Airdrie would have beaten them. So I don't think that it's just because Airdrie will perhaps have one eye on what's going on coming up against Partick Thistle shortly that they'll want to down tools. They'll want to go into these playoffs with a degree of confidence. But I think for Ferguson, this is a really interesting challenge for him, because I don't think that he's necessarily had the impact that anyone really expected from him in Inverness, Caledonian Thistle. I think we're all expecting, because he's such a big personality, such a big character, that his football would be this really high energy rock and roll style. But it's been quite passive, a bit too cautious, a bit too defensive, with Billy Mackay sort of isolated up front. So he really needs to find a way to perhaps, I'm going to use a bit of a cliche here, but take the handbrake off and really go for it against a Morton side who, let's be honest, they've been flatlining since about March, February time. So I'd actually maybe fancy Cali Thistle for this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it, Ryan? That Craig makes there about Duncan Ferguson's reign so far at Inverness. Are you surprised that his side find themselves in this precarious position?
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have seen Inverness ninth at this stage of the season. I think, as Craig said, when Duncan came in, I think everybody thought, "Oh wow, this is quite a big appointment." You know, obviously he's moved up from Liverpool to come up and take the manager's job, so he was obviously taking it super serious. And you kind of probably expected Inverness to kick on a little bit. I was never expecting Inverness to win the league, but I would certainly expect them to be in around the playoffs. And I think they've just, the wheels have sort of fell off them. I've seen them a couple of times against United this year, and one performance was decent, the other performance was abysmal. So as I said, Friday night, it's just such a horrible game for Inverness players, and the Queen's Park players, because there's so much hangs on it. There's so much emotion goes through it, because then if you finish ninth, you've then got a playoff to get ready for, and there's all the emotion of that. So I think Duncan will be looking for one last big push, and hopefully the players can stand up and be counted.
I'll put you on the spot then. Who will finish ninth? First you, Ryan.
I think Inverness will finish ninth. I genuinely do. I think Queen's Park, just with the last couple of results, I think that they will. And I think when it's in your hands, you know that you just need to go and you need to win the game. That's it. Let's just go, win the game. We've done our jobs. I think when you're an Inverness player, you're hoping that you win. You're hoping that Airdrie do them a favour as well. So I think it'll be a difficult game for Inverness.
And you, Craig?
Queen's Park to finish in ninth, but to stay up via the playoffs.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, whoever finishes ninth will be in the playoffs with Alloa, Hamilton and Montrose from League One. Craig, how would you fancy whoever it is chances against that bunch? Or the winner of that bunch?
I think Queen's Park will win the Championship playoffs. I look at Montrose and I think that they've had a decent season, finishing in fourth place in League One, but I do think they are surmountable. I do think Queen's Park can get the better of them. And then it's really between a Hamilton Accies side and Alloa Athletic. Alloa have been going great guns since Andy Graham came in. Andy Graham's like one of the nicest guys I've ever met in football, and I really hope he goes on to have a fantastic career at Alloa. But I do think that Hamilton might get the better of them, but I just think that Queen's Park are too strong for them. I know that they haven't necessarily kicked on since Callum Davidson came in, but there's just something about guys like Sean Welsh, Killian Sheridan, Dom Thomas that to me suggests that's better than anything that League One has to offer, and I do fancy the Spiders to come through this one.
Ryan, I just wanted to quickly spool back to Airdrieonians as well, because I'm not suggesting at all that they will be a walkover for Queen's Park, far from it, but they will have these playoff matches against Partick Thistle next week very much in mind. But as Craig mentioned, against Dundee United last week, when they didn't have much to play for, they were the better side. And I just wanted to get your view on what Rhys McCabe has achieved this season at Airdrieonians, because he's got silverware, he's got them into the playoff mix. It's actually a fantastic achievement. I know he talked early in the season about potentially winning the division, but I think that was more just about the scale of his ambitions as a manager. How would you sum up what's happened there this season?
I think for such a young manager to have done what he's done and have the sort of respect of the players and be able to put that sort of that plan across, because you can see exactly what they do every single week, the way they play, the patterns of play. And the way they're sort of set up and built up, I think it's been first class. I think getting into the game as well for Airdrie, if you're an Airdrie player, you want to play. You don't want to be left out, because I know the playoffs and you might want to rest players and things like that. But for me personally, I could never take a week off. So I would imagine most of the players will be thinking, I want to play, we want to win. Also as a manager, you'd want to be getting into it off the back of 3 points. You don't want to get beat at the end of the season and then it's like, I know you can sort of push it to the side, but ultimately you want to go into the playoffs winning. But I think what Rhys has done for such a young manager, and I think Airdrie's a good club, and I think it's a good fit. So listen, I think what they've got to do is just get ready for the playoffs, hopefully get a good result tomorrow night and get into the playoffs with no fear, which I'm sure they will. They've done it all season.
We are taking the BBC Scotland cameras to Tannadice tomorrow for the trophy lift as Dundee United host Partick Thistle, which will probably be, I think, at least the third party that these Dundee United players have enjoyed over the last couple of weeks. And quite frankly, Craig, I'm not quite sure what to expect as a spectacle, because last week against Airdrie, Dundee United, it wasn't a great match, obviously. It all felt like a bit of a preamble to the pitch invasion, frankly, and the celebrations with the away fans. And tomorrow kind of feels the same. I'm just wondering what sort of game you're expecting, because obviously there'll be huge celebrations at Tannadice, quite rightly so.
Yeah, I think for this one, I think that Dundee United will just be there just to try and send the fans home happy. I think it'll be like an end of season, like dead rubber affair where you'll get olays, you might see the odd Mexican wave, something daft like that, but everyone will just want to get to the end of the match to lift the trophy. Having seen my own team like win the league, win the first league in their history, but after the league was confirmed, every other match seemed like a bit of a non-event. You weren't, as a fan, you weren't necessarily really interested in the outcome, and you just wanted to get to the moment where you got to see your team lift the silverware. And I think that that United supporters might be the same here as well. Thistle, obviously, they'll want to at least try to, we mentioned Airdrie earlier, they'll want to try to go into the playoffs with a degree of momentum. So I think it's going to be a game that's played in like 0.75% speed.
And I take that back, actually. If I was a Partick Thistle player, I would not want to play tomorrow night.
No.
You do not want to be. I done it. Inverness actually won the league when I was at St Johnstone, and it was the last day of the season. And see, for an away player, when you're in the changing room, you can hear them lifting the cup and all the fans and all that. It's absolutely horrendous.
Do you not get a little bit more inspired to give them a bit of a bloody nose on their big day, Ryan?
Oh, you want to go all in. You want to leave a bit on them. But it was literally straight. I remember going straight in the changing room. The manager just saying, 2 minutes in the shower, let's get no food, no nothing. Let's get out of here. So I'm sure the Partick Thistle players will do a quick exit for Tannadice tomorrow night.
On to Leagues 1 and 2, the tops of both these stables pretty much done and dusted. It's the bottom where things are getting interesting. In League 1, you've got Stirling currently on 9th in the relegation playoff place, but only on goal difference. And they and Annan both on 38 points. Lo and behold, they play each other this Saturday. It is a proper shootout, isn't it, Craig? It's got you smiling. It's got you excited.
Yeah, this is. I mean, if you wanted to conclude the season, there's no better fixture to do it where it's just, as you say, a straight shootout between two teams level in points, and I'm really excited for this one, and I really hope that Annan Athletic stay up. I think Annan are one of my favourite clubs in the lower leagues. Ryan, I know you'll know the club very well. I think Galabank's one of the best away days in the lower leagues. It's something as an away fan you really look forward to getting the chance to go and experience, and I've been so impressed with them since the turn of the calendar year. I think that them and Sutherland are quite similar. When they both got promoted from League Two last season, they both went into League One, more or less keeping the same group of players. And originally, while Stirling adapted quite well, Annan really struggled. But since the turn of the year, the positions have completely swapped places, and it's Stirling that are flatlining, and Annan are absolutely flying. And Annan, there's a lot to like about them in terms of. You've got Tommy Goss and Aidan Smith up front, two players of different stature that really complement each other well. And Willie Gibson playing in midfield for Annan Athletic. The guy's absolutely fabulous. He's not particularly fast, but in terms of skill, the way he uses his body, his delivery from set pieces, it's so important to how Annan play. And in terms of Stirling Albion, on the other hand, I think that perhaps that Darren Young was perhaps a wee bit too loyal to some of the players that have come up there, and I think that's as the season's gone on, we're beginning to see that. But I'm really, really looking forward to this game, and I hope that it's Annan Athletic that come out on top from this one.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, Stirling Albion, I've got a goal difference of -19. Annan Athletic, it's -13. So clearly Stirling Albion need to win this match. They're at home. But this is what you live for as a football fan, isn't it, Ryan? I mean, if I didn't have other plans tomorrow, I'd be heading up the road there to Forth Bank, because this looks like it's got everything you'd want from a football match in it.
Yeah, it'll be butterflies all week for players and fans. I think you're building up towards it. But I'm pretty much the same as Craig. I hope that Annan managed to stay up. I had a good time there, good people. I played with Murph at United, and then he's went on and done a superb job there. And I hope they stay up. It is a really, really good club. But for the players, again, you just get into that last game of the season, and I mean the utter feeling of nerves. There's so much hangs on this one game, and it'll be whoever really stays composed and doesn't really play it's the same old cliche: don't play the occasion, play the game. So it'll be down to the players who manage to keep their calm.
And it's one of these weekends where I actually just wish somehow we had a sort of highlights programme of the entire SPFL weekend, because in League Two, it's almost as exciting. You've got Ian McCall's Clyde, who've been rock bottom of the table for 26 out of the 35 matches so far. They managed to haul themselves off the foot of the table last week. They're now 2 points ahead of Stranraer. It would be utterly remarkable, Craig, if they finished in ninth place, wouldn't it, given the context of the season? And if they did, should Ian McCall be in with a late shout of Manager of the Year if he manages it?
No, I don't think so. I think there's been quite a lot of investment put into Clyde since the turn of the year, and some of the calibre of the player that they signed. I think that McCall came into quite a bad situation. I don't think they'd signed particularly well in the summer. I think he started with a pool of players that, not to be too unkind, that perhaps weren't quite good enough for the SPFL. But since McCall's come in, a lot of these players have been moved on as a higher calibre player that's come on, and he does deserve a degree of credit for having chipped away at Stranraer's lead and to haul themselves off the foot of the table, as you say. But on top of that, you've got a Stranraer team who, I was checking the stats there, they scored 5 goals in their last 12 games. They just can't score goals, and that has been the massive problem for them this season. I think they're a tidy side. They're technically quite proficient, but I think they just lack that killer instinct, that physicality, that know-how. And I think when Ian McCall was able to bring in those players, I think that for a lot of people, you would have said that Clyde would be the ones that are able to move off the top, and Stranraer would settle and bottom there. So not quite man of the year, but a credible job that he's done there.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, just to clarify matters as well, Stranraer bottom of the table with 1 game to go. They're on 33 points. Clyde second bottom on 35 points. Goal difference quite close. Stranraer -17, Clyde -15. as Craig was mentioning, they're Stranraer kind of toiling recently. I don't think they've scored a goal in their last 4 matches. And Clyde are away at Elgin. Do you fancy their chances up there, Ryan? I think it's been quite even between the sides so far this season.
Yeah, I do. Listen, Ian was my manager at United, and I didn't particularly agree with Ian Monday to Friday. I think the way everybody knows what Ian's like, he's such a character, if we could use that word. But on a match day, he is he's spot on, genuinely spot on. And I think to eat into, what was it, 11 or 12 points, he was adrift. To claw back Stranraer, the performances I've had, because I've actually had an eye on both Stranraer and Clyde, and the performance that Clyde have had, I see nothing other than Clyde staying up. And I think when Craig says as well, as you're saying, when Stranraer can't score and you're going into a pressure situation, which Saturday obviously is, and they can't score previous five goals in the last X amount of games, I just think it'll be too much for Stranraer.
Yeah, and Stranraer at home to your beloved Stenhousemuir, Craig. And Stenhousemuir obviously champions, but on this unbelievable run of 8 draws in a row, are you going for the 9 on Saturday?
There's part of me that thinks we went through the second quarter winning every single match, so part of me wants to see, can you go through the final quarter and draw every match? I think that we're like kind of like Dundee United, we're in having a laugh territory as well. We've been trying out a new formation, playing 3 at the back. Our substitute players are coming in, sort of the key players who have been carrying niggles, they've been rested for the end of the season. But I think that we'll want to finish the season with 70 points. I think that's a good number for champions to finish the season with. But we've got such a sturdy defence. So even if Stranraer, we don't score against Stranraer, I can't see Stranraer scoring against us. And I mean, I'm going down dressed as a wrestler. There's about 17 of us that are going in fancy dress.
Why?
So it's the final game of the season. So I've got a Kane from WWE costume sitting in the other room there that I'm going to go down in. So,
can you not go Stone Cold Steve Austin, a pair of hot pants?
I don't quite have the body for it, Ryan, so I've got to go for a sort of a singlet to try and cover up my modesty. But it's even although Stenhousemuir aren't in the most inspiring of form at the moment, I still can't see Stranraer like getting a goal against us. So I think that's going to consign them to 10th place.
Ryan, whoever finishes bottom, Stranraer or Clyde, how do you fancy their chances against East Kilbride on the 11th and 18th of May?
Yeah, it'll be difficult. I think everybody knows that East Kilbride have put a lot of money into the club this season. They probably have 5, 6, 7 players who could play in League 2, potentially League 1. They have boys who can score goals, Robert Thompson, who have scored goals in the leagues over X amount of years. So I think it'll be whoever is faced against them is going to face a tough game. And again, what I said last week is what you've got to think about is East Kilbride have won all year, basically. Whoever's finished 10th basically lost all year. So it's these two sort of things colliding. And I know East Kilbride, from the chairman all the way through to Mick, to all the players, are desperate to get up into the league. So whoever faces them will be a really tough 2 games.
And Craig, we have a lot of problems in Scottish football, as we keep on hearing, lack of money, etc., etc. But we've managed to devise, somehow, by hook or by crook, a hugely exciting product come this end of this season that we can all revel in and enjoy, and if we feel like it, dress as wrestlers to attend to.
Yeah, definitely. I've enjoyed this season. Obviously, like my own team's success, but I think there's been a lot to like about it. Some good players, some good games, and hopefully we see an interesting conclusion to the season. I mean, I really like Stranraer as a club as well. I think it's good to have a lack of regionalisation in the SPFL, that teams from all across the country are represented, and to lose a team from such a more, like if you're putting your Central Bell hat on, a more remote location like Stranraer, and replacing them with a sort of like a Novo Reach, plasticky club like East Kilbride. I'm saying plasticky, I'm using inverted commas, that's perhaps how some people might perceive them, but I would hate to see Stranraer drop out if they do indeed finish bottom. But we've seen strange things happen in the playoffs in the past where the team that finishes in 10th place in League 2 haven't had a good season. They somehow can beat the teams that have been winning all year. So let's hope that's the case.
The Scottish Football Podcast producer is looking forward to all the complaints now from the East Kilbride area. Thanks, Craig. What a way to end. Fantastic stuff.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
Time to wrap things up, and many thanks to Ryan and Craig, and thank you for listening. Dundee United versus Partick Thistle will be live on Sports Scene on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30 on Friday night. And the Scottish Football Podcast will be back again first thing tomorrow morning with another daily dose of Scottish football. So make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you do not miss out. Scottish football, the gift that keeps on giving. Thanks for listening.
The Scotland Rugby Podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby Podcast.
It's just seismic stuff.
There's bucket hats as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is this a rugby podcast or is this a fashion podcast?
Why can't it be a bit of both?
Rugby. Let's get on to rugby. There's a lot to be excited about. Today's guest, John McGuigan.
Clubs are at the absolute bedrock of everything Scottish rugby's about.
The Rugby Sports Sound Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
You cannot help but be so excited. It's going to be the centre of the rugby universe.
BBC Sounds.